the only liberal talk show host in the state of Nevada, my friend, Doug Basham. Doug, thanks so much for joining us. How are you?
Good, Brian. And before we get to whatever we're going to get to, first of all, thank you for that excellent interview you just did with Susan. It was sobering, it was real, it was necessary, and it's something those who isolate themselves inside Trump's state-run propaganda ministry don't get to hear.
Well, you're right. I appreciate that, Doug. That's nice of you to say. And, there's a lot of right-wing talk show hosts that refuse to do interviews like that. They would rather speak to Mitch McConnell and fight about wearing masks. But we try to get the stories from the real people on the front lines, not those politicians that wear the Donald Trump knee pads. So I just want to make that very, very clear, Doug. Thank you for saying that.
It was moving. It was moving.
It was for me. It was for me as well, as I would hope everyone that was listening. That's a woman who is a hero. She's on the front lines. You could hear how emotional she was in talking about how, two family members losing their lives within 4 hours, and she was taking care of them, and how real this coronavirus is. But yet there are still idiots out there like the Laura Ingrams of the world who want to attack Dr. Fauci and think that this coronavirus is a hoax, as they've said from day one, and undermine the virus and say that the death rate, they're overblown and they're lying on the death rate so that these hospitals just can make money. These people are some of the most ignorant, disgusting people on the planet, and I will continue to say that until this virus is gone.
And someday you can tell me how you really feel.
That's right, exactly.
And also, if you want to listen to that interview or any of the interviews that we've done, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform or on iHeartRadio.
See, I forget to do that. That's why we have a producer, Doug. It's that's what we do here. All right, so let's start out with this Russia bounty story and Joe Biden. So Joe Biden, who I thought did a really good job yesterday in his press conference, even though, again, Laura Ingraham said it was a bumbling Joe Biden press conference. Couldn't be further from the truth, but Laura Ingraham lying shouldn't be a shocker to anybody. So this was Joe Biden. He was asked yesterday about the Russia bounty story and the daily intelligence briefings. I want you to have a listen to this, and then we'll talk about it. Here it is.
The presidential daily brief is something I read every single day as vice president. The president read it every day. I was briefed every morning before I got to the White House, and then again. So the idea that somehow he didn't know or isn't being briefed, it is a dereliction of duty if that's the case. And if he was briefed and nothing was done about this, that's a dereliction of duty.
So, Doug, what do you make of that?
Oh, I mean, it was nice to hear someone sound presidential. What I think is the most amazing thing about this Russian bounty story is no matter what excuse you come up with to defend Donald Trump, it's not acceptable. There's no acceptable excuse.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I thought Joe Biden answered it as a man who, by the way, is a former vice president of the United States. I think he said it best there. Then Joe Biden was asked about this white power retweet. Doug, I know you know what we're talking about, but in case others do not. Donald Trump retweeted one of his supporters yelling out white power. And then, the administration tried to defend it and say, well, he didn't hear what was said in that retweet. Here's Joe Biden's response to that. Have a listen to this.
Instead of, for example, when a golf cart goes by yelling white supremacy and the president tweets it out, don't do things like that. Bring the country together.
I couldn't agree more. What do you say to this, Doug?
Well, I mean, this just goes to what we all know to be true about Donald Trump. He is a sociopathic serial liar. If you watch that clip, the only thing you hear is white power.
It's true.
And to say that he didn't hear it or didn't know it was in there, and then Kayleigh McEnany turns around and says he's the most informed person on the planet. I mean,
yeah, we're going to get to that. Yeah,
if it wasn't so sad and dangerous, it would be funny.
I agree with you. I couldn't agree more. We're going to get back to that. One more Joe Biden clip I want to play for you because there's so many people out there that want to say Joe Biden has dementia. All the doctors out there that claim that the coronavirus was a Democratic hoax, by the way, those same people are now saying, Joe Biden has dementia. Well, Joe Biden was asked a little bit about that yesterday. He was asked about his cognitive abilities. Have a listen to this.
I've been tested and I'm constantly tested. Look, all I got to do is watch me, and I can hardly wait to compare my cognitive capability to the cognitive capability of the man I'm running against. Thank you so much.
There you go. That's the way he ended his press conference yesterday. What do you think about that, Doug?
Well, I think the one thing we should keep in mind, I mean, I think we all admit that Uncle Joe has lost his fastball, but one thing we shouldn't discount is that Uncle Joe is also a scrapper. And whereas he may not be at the top of his game and be able to throw the pitch by you, he'll knock you in the head with it. And even a slower pitch in the head is going to hurt. And Joe's a scrapper, and I'm not as concerned about him getting on the debate stage with Trump as I am the gaffes he will make in the campaign. But so far, those gaffes don't seem to be hurting him. And, we can counter with all the gaffes Trump makes.
I agree with you. I hope Joe Biden, if he does throw a pitch at Donald Trump, I hope he hits him in the bone spurs. Let's talk a little bit about Kayleigh, as you mentioned, the press secretary, of course, to the President of the United States, the enabler and liar, as I like to call her. So Kayleigh is blaming this rogue intelligence officers, also known as the deep state, on this bounty story leak. Have a listen to this.
These are rogue intelligence officers who are imperiling our troops' lives. We will not be able to get, very likely not be able to get a consensus on this intelligence because of what was leaked to the New York Times. And you have both the NSC, ODNI, and CIA all noting what damage this leaks does, not just to the safety of our troops, which is paramount, but to the ability of the United States to aggregate information from our allies and have assets and get this valuable information. So who's doing it? It's
members of the IC are going after Trump. Is that what you're saying?
It very possibly could be. And if that's the case, it is absolutely despicable.
It's very possible. Doug, what do you think of that?
Well, this is the same thing as when Trump said, everything Bolton's saying is a lie, and yet it's classified. Well, it can't be both. And it's the same thing that Kayleigh's saying, Kayleigh McEnemy. They're saying, well, there's nothing to this story. Trump wasn't told, blah, blah, blah. Yet it's a rogue agent who's spreading these terrible things. My take on this is be careful what you wish for. The reason the intelligence community is spilling the beans on Trump now is, A, because he's a traitor and a threat to our national security, and B, he poisoned the whistleblower process so that this is the only recourse they have left. If they come out as whistleblowers, Trump's media will immediately jump on them, call them so-called whistleblowers, phony whistleblowers. So really, they're resorting to it's not that I'm condoning the leaking of this information, but it is Donald Trump and his poison that has put them in this position where they feel the only recourse they have is to go to the media.
Good point. Good point. I'm not going to argue with you on that one. So Kayleigh also claimed that Donald Trump does read his intelligence briefings. Have a listen to this.
The president does read, and he also consumes intelligence verbally. This president, I'll tell you, is the most informed person on planet Earth.
This president is the most informed person on planet Earth. When it comes to what? Fake tans? What is she talking about?
Well, it's just another lie to cover for Trump, and I think there's been enough evidence provided so far to prove that Donald Trump was briefed on this Russian bounty story. So for her to come out now and say that he does read his brief, well, we know he doesn't. I mean, it was reported 3.5 years ago that they had to shorten the daily brief to one page, put a lot of pictures in it, and mention his name a lot in it so that they would keep his attention. And they still couldn't do it. So they started briefing him orally because they knew he wouldn't read. So for her to say now that he does read his brief, first of all, we know that's a lie. Second of all, that gets rid of their excuse that he didn't know.
Exactly.
I mean, this is just a gang that can't shoot straight, and they can't keep their lies straight.
I agree. I mean, the entire administration can't keep their lies straight. I couldn't agree with you more on that one. And even it goes both ways, right, Doug? If he didn't read it, well, why didn't he? Don't you think the president of the United States probably should have known if Russia put a bounty on U.S. troops? And if he did read it, it is, as far as I'm concerned, arguably the worst thing that Donald Trump has done thus far as president. I mean, there's a lot of bad things he's done. I think the coronavirus, there's a lot of things we can get into here. But both ways, it's a lose-lose for the president, and it's disgusting. I want to go into this. Politico reporter Ryan Leza asked if Donald Trump believes it was a good thing that the South lost the Civil War and if Trump will ban Confederate flags at rallies. Listen to how Kayleigh dodges the question. Listen to this.
Does President Trump believe that it was a good thing that the South lost the Civil War? And then two, is he interested in following NASCAR's example and banning the Confederate flag at his own events?
Well, your first question is absolutely absurd. He's proud of the United States of America. Second, with regard to our statues, Americans oppose tearing down our statues. There's a Harvard-Harris poll released just last week that shows 60% of respondents said the statues should remain, and 71% said local governments should block groups from physically destroying the statues. So he stands on the side of preserving our history.
The question was not about statues, Kaylee, and she knows that. The question was specifically, will the President of the United States ban the Confederate flag at his rallies? She did not and would not answer the question. It is disgusting, Doug. What do you make of that?
Oh, I agree completely. I mean, there's no question. And I just thought of something, Brian. If we can go back to something we were talking about a few moments ago.
Sure.
All you need to know about Donald Trump and this Russian bounty story, this story exploded last Friday. I covered it on Saturday on my show. It's now Wednesday. This story is now 6 days old, and we have yet to hear a peep, not even a whisper of anything critical towards Russia from Donald Trump. And it's like, why do people have trouble believing he knew and didn't do nothing? He knows now, and he's still doing nothing except golfing and criticizing the media and rogue agents.
By the way, speaking of golfing, I will bring something else up. I don't know if you heard this story, Doug, but when the president retweeted that white power tweet, apparently members of his staff were trying to get in touch with him so they could take down the tweet, and it took hours for them to contact him. Why? Because the man was on the golf course, and apparently he put his phone down, and he's the only person that has the actual passwords to his Twitter account. And this is the same president who was attacking Barack Obama for playing too much golf. The president said, I'm not going to have time to play golf. The president has played more golf in about 3.5 years than Obama played in 8 years. You know, what do you make of that?
I know. And there's another point. This story exploded on Friday. What did he do? He played 36 holes of golf on Saturday and Sunday.
Well, maybe he's in better physical condition than we thought. What stamina this man has. He must take vitamins. I don't know. I mean, it's just incredible. He's able to play 36 holes of golf, but doesn't address, what's going on in this country right now in regards to, number one, the coronavirus, of course, racial tensions in this country, and the idea, by the way, that, Joe Biden has lost his cognitive abilities is absolutely absurd. It's absolutely absurd, and I wanted to bring this up because we talked about it last hour. Laura Ingraham now attacking Dr. Fauci. I want to get your thoughts on this. Laura Ingraham herself is saying that she believes that Dr. Fauci might as well just be working for the Joe Biden campaign. That's what she said on her show last night, attacking the doctor. What do you make of that?
That is why we can't have nice things. That is why the cases, remember last week I said the cases aren't spiking, they're exploding?
Right.
This is why, because you have this whole massive misinformation and propaganda media industrial complex that's feeding people misinformation and, frankly, lies. And I hate to say this, but the stations that carry this, shame on them. I mean, just shame on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Doug Basham. Does a show here on KDWN Saturdays, 2 to 4 p.m. I want to talk a little bit about the McCluskeys, if I may. And, of course, if you don't know who the McCluskeys are, we're going to get into this coming up next segment as well, but I certainly want to get Doug's take on this. The McCluskeys are the couple, the wealthy couple, the two attorneys, and that were outside their home. The husband with an AR-15, the wife with a gun, and it appeared as though they had never handled a weapon before in their life. It was in regards to a Black Lives Matter protest where Black Lives Matter protesters were on private property. They did take down a gate, but they were not on the personal private property of the McCluskeys. So what do the McCluskeys do? They get out there with a gun, and they absolutely start pointing it at some of those protesters. Doug, what do you make of this situation? It is my personal opinion that the McCluskeys should be charged with a crime. If anyone else in that crowd had a gun, they would have had the right to shoot them because my life would have been in jeopardy. Yes, were those people trespassing? Yes. But they were not breaking down their door. They were not putting them in harm's way from all the video that I've seen. What do you make of this story?
I think it was an overreaction on their part. I don't know. I mean, I saw the bit with Chris Cuomo, and it was a little embarrassing. But my initial reaction was, can you imagine if those two were black?
Yeah. Yeah, I see. I agree with you, and I don't think I'm taking it over the top here. And this is just my personal opinion. I think this was Mark McCluskey's wet dream. Mark McCluskey's wet dream was to be able to go in his front yard and point an AR-15 at a bunch of black people. That's what I believe. That is what I think. I am sticking by my guns, for lack of a better term. Do you think that they committed a crime, though? Because now this is where this investigation is headed. They're investigating the protesters, and the prosecutor there is also investigating the McCluskeys. Do you think they committed a crime? Do you think it's okay to point a gun at somebody, even if they're not on your personal property, on a street in front of your personal property?
No, I agree with you on that. I don't know if they'll be able to make the charge of a crime stick, but I mean, you know, if you look at it, it's such a self-defeating thing to do. It's like they just told all of those protesters, and I'm not condoning whatever recourse there might be or repercussions, but they basically just said, we live here and we're jerks. You know, it's
That's
like
exactly what they did.
Give
Yep.
away their address and their attitude. It's like, would you do that?
I agree. I agree with you 150%.
And Trump, Doug, you know, as you know, Trump retweeted that as well. I think
Trump
the same day as the White
except
Power the next
Russia.
day.
I mean, he is harder on. He defends the traitors who fought against the United States more than he defends them, and he won't go after Putin. I mean, it's just.
Yeah. No, it's
I mean,
disgusting.
It's inexplicable. Except we know that he's Putin's puppet. Hillary warned us.
Yeah, and she was right. Sadly, she was right, and also stood up on a stage and sided with Kim Jong-un. I mean, he's done it time and time again with some of these evil, murderous dictators, and I can guarantee it won't be the last time. Well, Doug, I know we've probably touched on a lot of the subjects that you're going to be speaking about this weekend on Saturday. Are you doing your show, by the way, on the 4th of July?
Oh, heck yeah. I never take a day off.
I love it. I love it. So what you got going on, man? Tell me what you plan on discussing this Saturday.
Well, it's been reported that Trump has been looking for a new nickname for Joe Biden that he thinks is more damaging than Sleepy Joe. And it's also been reported he's looking for a new slogan. Well, I put some thought into that, and I came up with one, and I'm going to lay it out, and then I'm going to explain why. And the slogan I came up with is Trump 2020, Death to America. And I'm going to start off with the coronavirus and all his failures in that and work up to the Russian scandal. And I've got like 5 or 6 in between.
I like that, actually. I think that's pretty accurate, actually. Stein, do you like that?
Yeah, I like it. It's catchy, Doug. And, JD's out today, so I'll fill a little bit of that vacuum, but I'll try to do it in a different way. But basically, let me ask you this, Doug. We were talking about Joe Biden and his cognitive abilities, and a lot of people like to call that elder abuse. It's elder abuse that Joe Biden is out there on the stage. Isn't it elder abuse to verbally attack someone that you think has dementia from old age? Isn't that a form of abuse?
Sure.
I mean, do you think voters are going to turn? I mean, think about older voters. I mean, you're making fun of someone that you think is dementia because of their age. Is they going to turn a lot of older people off, or are they going to just ignore that because they like Trump?
Off with his homicidal coronavirus negligence. I mean, that affects the elders more than it does anybody else. So anybody that hasn't turned against him for his homicidal negligence with regards to the coronavirus and elders might want to start thinking about it on this level too.
Very true. Doug, you make a lot of sense, my friend. That's why we agree a lot more than we would disagree. Doug, I look forward to hearing your show on Saturday from 2 to 4, my friend. Always am a fan. Always listen. I recommend anybody do the same. Doug, you do a great show, my friend. Thanks for coming on, as always. Appreciate it. Stay safe. Have a great 4th of July weekend, my friend, okay?
Hey, you do the same, and you guys stay safe, too.
Thank you. That is Doug Basham, the only liberal talk show host in the state of Nevada.